Hey everybody, good morning. Welcome to the Morning Devo with Beau. Hope you guys are well today. It is 9:04, June 25, and Genesis 43 today. So not a huge chapter, but a continuation of kind of what's going on with the 12 tribes, if you will, the 12 sons of Jacob, and specifically how it relates to Joseph, and Joseph being in the political world of Egypt. We live in a world where people are super geeked up on government stuff. Politics is big business. I remember a song back in my growing up days where it said the biggest gang I know is called the government. And the government is big and it is powerful, and whether you're here in today's world or whether you were the Pharaoh of Egypt, and Joseph is the right-hand man of the Pharaoh. He has taken on a project after getting after interpreting the dream of the Pharaoh that there was going to be a famine first of all, plenty for 7 years, and then there was going to be a famine for 7 years. And Joseph interpreted that dream, obviously with God's help, interpreted what the future would hold for Egypt and the surrounding Middle East. And the land of Canaan, where Joseph is from, his father Jacob and his brothers, they all lived there, and they were stuck in this famine. And so we see that there's this issue. Joseph saw his brothers as his brothers came and sought food from the provisions that were in, if you will, the area of Egypt. And Joseph had an amazing distribution center in Egypt where they could store up crops during the lands of plenty, and then during the lands of famine, they could distribute to the area, to its citizens. And as Joseph's brothers came, they didn't recognize Joseph, but Joseph certainly recognized them, told them to go back to the land of Canaan and bring Joseph's, Joseph said, hey, bring your youngest brother. This would be Benjamin. So Benjamin and Joseph share the same mom. And so that's kind of a cool thing to just know in the kind of story, if you will, or the historical narrative here. But as always, let's get into it and see what it says to us today, right in our devotion. Genesis 43. It says, "But the famine continued to ravage the land of Canaan, and when the grain had brought from Egypt was almost gone," because they brought grain from Egypt. It says, "Jacob said to his sons, 'Go back and buy us a little more food.'" So they've run out of the food that they got from the distribution center in Egypt, and now they need to go back. Continually going through the struggles of a famine, of a difficult time. And Judah's one of the brothers of Joseph. He says, the man was serious when he warned us. Now, the man is Joseph, right? But Judah doesn't know. He can't recognize his brother. His brother is a politician in Egypt. He is one of the government cabinet members. He looks like an Egyptian. He dresses like an Egyptian. He wears probably the makeup like an Egyptian. It's funny. Today you might go, well, you shouldn't look like this. You shouldn't look like that. You shouldn't look like this. And I get that. There is a place of, maybe distinguishing what why you're doing what you're doing. But boy, would we criticize Joseph today? would we be on Joseph, man? We'd be like, what are you doing, dude? You look like this. You look like that. Why are you wearing all that jewelry, dude? Why are you wearing this? Why are you wearing that? He looked the part. He really looked the part. And boy, even in today's world, people look the part, don't they? People, in politics, they dress a certain way. They look, and it's so weird getting older. I'm telling you. It's bizarre because you always think your generation is like totally different. Like, oh man, you guys, the Generation X generation will never conform. You know what we do? We conform. We look like everybody else. We look like all the other politicians. I'm getting all this junk texting, and then you watch anything on any of your streaming kind of platforms, and you notice all the government, politics is commercials are out. And you notice that a lot of people are now Generation Xers that are now in politics, but they all look the same. Everybody looks the same. Everybody dresses the same. Everybody's just the same, blah, 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 blah. And it's funny how that's just how our world is. We can't get out of it, man. We're in this bubble of conformity. I love how the Bible says, don't be conformed to the image of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Don't be conformed. Don't conform to what this world, where it's going, what it's doing, what it's saying, all that. Don't be conformed to that, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. That means my finances need to be transformed. Do I live the same way everybody else lives? Maybe I need to not conform, but maybe I need to be transformed. Maybe I need to do my work different from everybody else. I don't want to be conformed to the image of this world. I want to be transformed. I want to play my sports not by being conformed to the image of the world, but being transformed by the renewing of my mind. Meaning, man, I want to be transformed. I want to be looking at God, because God is the greater. God is the bigger. Does that make sense? He's the more powerful. He is the greatest. I want to be transformed. I want something to transform me, and that something is God. It's the work of His Spirit, what the Bible calls the Holy Spirit. Man, that is cool. Okay, so it says the man was serious when he warned us. You see, you won't see my face again unless your brother's with you. If you send Benjamin with us, we will go down and buy more food. But if you don't let Benjamin go, we won't go either. Remember, the man said, you won't see my face again unless your brother is with you. Judah says, Dad, I'm going to have to bring Benjamin. Why are you so cruel to me? Jacob moaned. Why did you tell him you had another brother? Why? Why did you do it, Judah? When you were before this politician in Egypt, why did you have to tell him that you had another brother? Why didn't you just not say nothing? Or why didn't you lie? Why couldn't you lie? Why did you have to do this? Now look at what you've done to me. Look at the predicament you've put your old man in. You see how you've done it? Do you see even here just some real problems with the way Jacob is talking to his son? Instead of Jacob perhaps going, you know what, man, I really messed up in my fatherhood. I wasn't really the greatest father. You guys all have different mothers. It's been just a mess from the get-go, from the beginning, man. It's been just it's been a very dysfunctional family. And I've been a dad who has shown a lot of favoritism towards Joseph, towards one of my sons. And instead of going that direction, he's like, why did you do this, Judah? Why did you do that? You see what you've done to me? Judah was just being honest. Judah just said what was honestly true, to Joseph back in Egypt, that he did have a younger brother. But, the dad is fearing for Benjamin's life. He already lost, in his mind, one son from his favorite wife, who died in childbirth, giving birth to Benjamin. And so he is super afraid. And you can see how fear a lot of times brings about this kind of language when we start talking to people. You. We start blaming, right? We start saying it's you out there. Yeah, it's you, all you politicians. You're all so bad. Oh, yeah? Well, you know what? They're just human beings. Human beings are bad, and I'm part of the human being. And so guess who else is bad? Me. I'm a part. It's interesting. Even though I'm not in the world, even though I'm in the world, I don't want to be of the world. The Christian is always trying to get his mind or her mind on the things of God. That's what we're trying to do, is have our identity to be in God. What we are to do in the day, how we are to be motivated, everything is, we're looking at God. We're looking at his goodness, his greatness, his grace, his mercy, his wrath, his judgment, the accountability we have with God. We're looking at all that daily to get our minds focused on God. That we're not focused on our fears. We're not focused on our insecurities, but instead we confess those things to God and ask God to help us with those things, to deal with those things in our lives that bring that fear out. I'm fearing the loss of Benjamin. And Judah, I don't want you to take him. And why did you put us in this situation? And all these things like that. How many of your family upbringings did you see a lot of fear and insecurity really rule the nest? It really dominated your upbringing. And what's crazy is that kind of fear and insecurity latches a hold of you too, and me. Meaning it seems to kind of come to us through osmosis. Our moms are insecure, or they're controlling, because they're insecure, because they're fearful. And that ends up becoming part of our lives too. We can become very fearful. Again, the Christian is always looking to God's word to direct them. God is with me, I shall not fear. Right? I shall not fear. Why? Because he's with me. He's going to help me. He's going to get me through. Even through difficulty, he'll see me through. And that's the one that really matters. God really matters, because he's the one who can truly deal with a fallen world and a fallen body that I have, and a fallen mind and a frailty. God knows how to overcome those things. The politics of this world, it can't overcome those things. It tries to help us with our bodies, tries to help us with our minds, tries to help us with other things, right? But it can't seem to do it. It always has a failure, to it. Some people might get better, some people won't. Some people will get mentally healthy, some people won't. But all people are going to die, no matter how many great doctors you go to. It really, at the end, it's a losing battle. We need something greater. That's why we're looking to God. I don't want to act like Jacob like this. And he says, the man kept asking us questions about our family. They replied. He asked, is your father still alive? Do you have another brother? So we answered his questions. How could we know he would say, bring your brother down here? And Judah said to his father, send the boy with me, and we will be on our way. Otherwise, we will all die of starvation. And not only we, but you and our little ones. I personally guarantee his safety. You may hold me responsible if I do not bring him back to you. Then let me bear the blame forever. If we hadn't wasted all this time, we could have gone and returned twice by now. So obviously this went over a period of time, these kinds of talks. And I don't know if you've had that, where it's like in your family, you have these months that go on through where it's just the same old discussions over and over again. And no one's getting past it. No one's dealing with really the issues. It just seems to be the same stuff that's going on. All the yuckiness. Never fun, man. So their father Jacob finally said to them, if it can't be avoided, then at least do this. Pack your bags with the best products of the land. Take them down to the man as gifts. Balm, honey, gum, aromatic resin, pistachio nuts. Sounds good. Almonds. Take also double the money that was put back in your sacks, as it was probably someone's mistake. Then take your brother and go back to the man. Remember, Joseph had him return and put in their sacks of grain the money that his brothers paid for the grain at the distribution center. So, they went to pay the money. Joseph had those people take that money and then put it back into their sacks of grain that they supposedly bought. So it says, Jacob says, you put that money back, and you even put more money in there for them. And it says, but if I must lose my children, so be it. So, he's going to let Benjamin return. And so, and that way, remember, Simeon's being held ransom at this point, or more like, what is it called? Security. He's held in jail right now. Simeon is back in Egypt, saying, hey, it was Joseph's way of saying, hey, you're going to return because one of your brothers is here in the pokey until you guys return with Benjamin. So Joseph's a smart guy. He is a wise man, good administrator. So the men packed Jacob's gifts and double the money and headed off with Benjamin. They finally arrived in Egypt and presented themselves to Joseph. And when Joseph saw Benjamin with them, he said to the manager of his household, these men will eat with me this noon. Take them inside the palace. Then go slaughter an animal and prepare a big feast. So the man did as Joseph told him and took them to Joseph's palace. The brothers were terrified when they saw that they were being taken into Joseph's house. It's because of the money someone put in our sacks last time we were here, they said. He plans to pretend that we stole it. Then he will seize us, make us slaves, and take our donkeys. You can see the fear overwhelming welling up in the boys, in the boys of Jacob. They are scared to death. Now, they don't know that their brother is the one that they're actually going to go to their brother's house. This is going to be their brother who they sold, who they lied to their dad about, saying he got ravaged by an animal, that he's dead. I mean, they really had it in for Joseph so many years ago. And here they have no clue that they are going to be invited, or they are being invited into Joseph's home. And they're scared. They think that it's all over. Again, go to a foreign country. And what if you get taken captive? What if you get, what if the politicians of that country say, hey, we want to talk to you? I mean, boy, that is nerve-wracking. The brothers approached the manager of Joseph's household and spoke to him at the entrance to the palace. Sir, they said, we came to Egypt once before to buy food, but as we were returning home, we stopped for the night and opened our sacks. Then we discovered that each man's money, the exact amount paid, was in the top of his sack. Here it is. We have brought it back with us. We also have additional money to buy more food. We have no idea who put our money in our sacks. Relax. Man, that must have been a good word, right? From Joseph's worker. One of his employees, says to the brother or the brothers, hey, relax, guys. Relax. Just chill out a little bit. I know you guys are sketched out. You have a lot of fear going on. You're scared. You don't know what's going to happen, but relax. Now, doesn't this sound a lot like Jesus, where Jesus says, don't worry. Don't worry about your life, what you will eat. Don't you know that you're of more importance than this, or more important than that? Don't you know God loves you? Don't you know God's thinking about you? Don't you know that God rejoices over you? I mean, Jesus is getting that same point across. Relax. Be at peace. God knows your needs. He knows really what you need. Sometimes those needs that we have are things like forgiveness. That sometimes we just need a whole big dose of someone forgiving us because we know we've done wrong. Or maybe we know we need mercy, and we need a big, big dose of mercy in our life. Those things that really can give us peace in our life. Or maybe we just need to know that we're okay. That we don't have to try to be something, or we don't have to try to impress, or we don't have to try to, make someone, happy with us. We can just be us, and that we're okay and we're loved. Unconditionally loved. Those kind of things. So he says, relax, don't be afraid. The household manager told them, your God, the God of your father, must have put this treasure into your sacks. I know, and I received your payment. Then he released Simeon and brought him out to them. Wow, that must have been a powerful word. Hey, the God that you serve, man, he is looking out for you guys. I mean, that must have been everything to those boys, to those men. You mean God's in this? God sees what's going on. He knows my situation. He knows the difficulty I'm in. He knows the injustice, or he knows, the things that I've done that are wrong. And he's giving mercy to us. He's being gracious towards me. Man, I bet you that was, what's it like when God pours his forgiveness out on you? We just were singing Psalm 32 the other day. I don't know if you've ever read Psalm 32, but blessed is the man or the human being whose sins are forgiven. Happy is the person whose sins are forgiven. The happiest person in the world is one who knows that they have been forgiven. I am forgiven. I know my sin. I know my iniquity. I know my transgressions. And the Lord has forgiven them all. Man. And so it says, the manager led the men into Joseph's palace, and he gave them water to wash their feet and provided food for their donkeys, and they were told that they would be eating there. So they prepared their gifts for Joseph's arrival at noon. When Joseph came home from work, basically, they gave him the gifts they had brought him. They bowed low to the ground before him. After greeting them, he asked, how is your father, the old man you spoke about? Is he still alive? Yes, they replied. Our father, your servant, is alive and well, and they bowed low again. Then Joseph looked at his brother Benjamin, the son of his own mother. Is this your youngest brother, the one who you told me about? Joseph asked. May God be gracious to you, my son. Then Joseph hurried from the room because he was overcome with emotion for his brother. He went into his private room where he broke down and wept. And after washing his face, he came back out, keeping himself under control. Then he ordered, bring out the food. The waiter served Joseph at his own table, and his brothers were served at a separate table. The Egyptians who ate with Joseph sat at their own table because Egyptians despise Hebrews and refused to eat with them. Joseph told each of his brothers where to sit, and to their amazement he seated them according to their age, from oldest to youngest. And Joseph filled their plates with food from their own table, giving Benjamin 5 times as much as he gave the others. So they feasted and drank freely from him. Now, what a great end of the chapter. Joseph has a huge dinner party with his brothers there, and the brothers don't even know it's Joseph. But Joseph gives them a hint. He kind of not only speaks, very preciously to Benjamin, granting him a greeting, a very special greeting. But he also aligns them in the age that they were born. What was it? Who's I forget the order, but it's like Simeon, Reuben, Judah. I might have those twisted a little bit, but he just went in order, sat them down in a place where they could eat and feast. And so they were at their picnic table, so to speak, and the Egyptians were at their picnic table. But Joseph's eye was on them, and he set them in this order, the order of birth. And I'm sure those brothers were like, man, this is crazy. This is bizarre. But you know what? They're probably thinking too at this time, like, hey, God's with us. God's God's got something. God's doing something. Simeon's out of jail. He's with us. Benjamin's with us. This guy seems to like Benjamin. He's asking really cool questions about our dad, this kind of thing. And, they're thinking, hey, if God's with us, who can be against us? It's a great idea, right? Hey, if God is for me, who can be against me? Man, God's doing something. What a beautiful way to anticipate, it's a beautiful thing to anticipate in a day the work of God in your life. Meaning today's a new day, and what is God going to do? And man, I'm anticipating. I know he's for me. I know he loves me. I know he's forgiven me. I know he's, he has great thoughts towards me. I know he has thoughts for me to prosper. And, what does God have for me today? I mean, such a cool idea every day to think that way, right? To think that God's got something for me today. He's with me. Though the world might be against me, he's with me. But notice too, Joseph. Joseph looks at his brother, and what does he see? He sees his mom. I mean, this is touching. When he sees people, and especially his brother, he's reminded of his mom whom he loved. And he is reminded probably of everything that's happened to him too. Being despised by his own brothers, his older brothers, being, treated horribly, thrown into a pit, left to die by his brothers despising him, hating him, saying horrible things to him then being picked up by Ishmaelites and sold as a slave to Egypt, and then being, put on rape charges and having people think that he was a rapist, and he goes to jail, for a trumped up rape charge. And then he has to spend years there. It must have been overwhelming for him to see Benjamin and to be reminded of his mom and just everything that his mom fed into his life. And those are precious. It's a neat question. Like, do you look at your relatives? Can you see, kind of the preciousness that's in people? And I love that. He looks at Benjamin and he weeps. He's reminded, of, God's work in his life. He's reminded of so many things. What reminds you of God's work in your life? Where you kind of move to the side and just weep and just have that good cry. Where you're just, blown away. It happens to me a lot where I'll be talking to someone and we'll hit a subject or hit something that'll remind me of something, and then my eyes just water up. I can tell that I'm emotional, and it's because I'm reminded of so many people in my life and how they've affected me, and how God's used it all to kind of work out his plan and his beautiful love for me, show his love for me in so many different ways. But it's through the lives of so many people. And, it's interesting. Some people are afraid of other people. They're afraid of those emotions. And so they just hide. And they can never be vulnerable. But because they can't be vulnerable, they'll never experience that depthness of love. And that's what's beautiful about marriage, right? Is when you're married, you should, in a good marriage, experience a beautiful vulnerability. And that vulnerability breeds not destruction, though it can, but it breeds actually a depthness of love and intimacy and trust that is something that's like nothing on the earth. It's beautiful. And that when when I look at my wife, man, I don't just see a person. I see so many things through her. I see so many things, so many events, so many people, so many things, just when I think of her, and especially when I'm around her. And man, it makes me welt up inside and just go, man, wow, God, you've done a lot in our lives. And how beautiful have you been? How wonderful, you've been. It's very cool. And, Joseph has this beautiful experience. And we can all understand this as human beings. I mean, this isn't a, quote, Hebrew thing or a Christian thing per se. This is just a human thing of where we can develop beautiful relationships through this kind of, vulnerability, trusting, and it really affects us in our hearts and makes us quite emotional. And Joseph is overcome with emotion, and he has to pull himself away and find himself in the bathroom, right, weeping or something like that, and then cleaning himself off and getting himself composed to go back, because he is just so blown away, of all that has gone on. And hey, who would have known that his brothers would come to Egypt, and that the brother that they went to kill is going to be the ruler of Egypt, second in command to the Pharaoh, and that would provide them food to survive, and would be meeting in his palace home, meeting in the big house, the house that's a little different from your home. Me, I have a 1,600 square foot home. So when I go into a home that's 2,500, 4,000 square feet, I'm kind of like, wow, I think I'm in a giant house, a giant mansion, that kind of thing. And they must have been blown away. So man, God is really at work. So I'm looking forward to chapter 44, see what happens there. But until that time, you guys have a good day and be focused on God and what God has for you today. It's good stuff. Whatever it is, we know he's overcome everything already. He's already conquered sin and death. He's already given you forgiveness. And man, you could really have a good outlook today on your life. Okay, we'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.